Hello, my name is Kevin Sass, winemaker at Halter Ranch, and today we're going to be learning about all of the activity that goes on in the vineyard during harvest. So let's go see what happens. A little bit about the 2021 harvest. It's been a really moderate year throughout the year. The good news is that we've got some beautiful fruit out there. Harvest is a little bit early at the moment, so we started in basically the first week of September, which usually we start the second week of September, so a few weeks early. The team has been fantastic, either by picking by machine or picking by hand. There's been a lot of situations where they're just completely reliable and showing up on time. The machine's been working perfectly. So far, so good. You always run into situations during harvest where this happens or that happens, but certainly no emergencies and just a beautiful, very fluid process so far. So it's been great. The weather in 2021 has been, pretty much ideal. I mean, as everybody knows, we always talk about the vintage, and the vintage determines the quality of the year. And literally from the start of the year, in January of this year, it's been almost perfect. And when I say almost perfect, the one thing I would say is that we have a really low rainfall. We're sitting at, basically 11 inches out here, which is really subpar. So it is, what we would consider a drought year for sure. The good news is that we went through spring without any frost, so there was no damage to the developing berries at that point. We went through the growing season without any shatter, which is really helpful. It's a process that can happen that can lower the yields. And then we had a really moderate summer. And now we dive into fall, which is notorious for having heat spikes where you get a little 90-degree day and then literally that night it's 50 degrees. That diurnal swing that's very important to making great quality wine. And so far it's just been kind of picture perfect, mostly in the high 80s, low 90s, which has been really helpful for the hand crews that are out there in the mornings. It's not too hot. We're not getting any major heat spikes, because heat spikes at this point can cause some raisoning and some desiccation on the actual grapes themselves, and we haven't seen that as well. Everything that's come in has been just beautiful, great color, good acid. And again, with the exception of the yields this year, yields are down all the way across California, as much as 40 to 50% in some places, and we're seeing some of that. I don't think we're as low as that in the yield percentage. I'm looking right now that we're maybe 20 to 30% down than normal. But essentially, sometimes that happens, and sometimes you end up with just great quality. And I think this is one of those years that's what's happening. A little bit lower yields, but great quality. The grapes that came off first this year was vineyard. That was the start of our harvest this year, which is obviously a white grape variety. After that, we went into Vermentino, which is the second year that we've harvested Vermentino. We just released the Vermentino from last year about a couple weeks ago. Great wine, love that wine, one of my favorite whites. After that, we went into a little bit of Grenache and Syrah. And we've gotten a tiny bit of Cab in from some of the younger vineyards. And we've got Malbec coming in right now, as well as a little bit more Syrah. And probably by the next week or so, we'll be heavy into Cabernet. So, and then we'll finish off with Petit Verdot, which is usually the case. Always seems to go in that order: some light whites first, then the Grenache, then the Syrah, then you get into some of the bigger reds like Cabernet, Petit Verdot, the bigger, more bolder, powerful ones. But we're really looking forward to this vintage because it's going to be really good. Also, starting early, it's always kind of fun because hopefully I'll get a chance to enjoy Halloween, which in some years I don't get that opportunity. So looking forward to that one. Harvest is a tremendous amount of hard work. We have kind of two teams, if you want to call it. We use a machine harvester, which is amazing, and it's gone leaps and bounds. I kind of joke with people, it's like, the iPhone 12 versus the iPhone 1. I mean, these machines just get better and better every year. We bought ours a couple years ago, and it has just made a huge difference in the consistency of being able to pick the grapes in a timely manner and having fruit for us to be there in the morning, and super clean as well. And that team in itself basically consists of our driver, Miguel, Cesar, who's his spotter, and then Zeb, our vineyard manager. Their normal routine is to start at around 9 o'clock at night, right when that diurnal shift of weather starts to cool down. So the grapes are nice and cool. So, they get started around 9, but don't get going till about 10 o'clock. They pick from, 9 to 10 all the way till about 6 or 7 in the morning when it's really, really cold. And then when I arrive here at, 5, I get a chance to catch up with Zeb and see what they picked on that night. The hand situation is a little bit more complex because everything has to be picked by hand. It's considerably slower than the machine. And we have a home crew, basically people who work for Halter Ranch. That's about 10 people. And they usually show up at midnight. And at midnight they get started. We have light towers, we have leafers, we have a couple tractors, and they work really, really hard for usually about 6 or 7 hours. They're usually done by 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Of course, it depends on what they're picking that night. But talk about tedious work. I mean, literally on their hands and knees, grabbing every cluster in the dark, headlamps, light towers. It's a real thorough, tough process, but we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So, we appreciate that. The difference between hand harvested grapes and machine harvested grapes, there's definitely a difference. When you do the hand harvested grapes, the team is out there. You have, real people's eyes on the vines. They walk through, they basically take a knife and they go through and they cut off the stem. And so the cluster of grapes that goes into their bin is still attached to the stem, which is obviously a big part of it. And the other thing that the hand crew does, we call them the hand crew here, is they use their eyes to see things, and they use their eyes to pick things, and they use their eyes not to pick things. So, occasionally in a vineyard you'll find, ironically, like a plant that actually has white grapes on it mixed in with one with red. And the benefit of the hand crew is they go through and they skip that because they know that I don't want white grapes in my red tank. Or if you have a vine that maybe had some squirrel damage, or a vine that dehydrated for one reason or another, that's got some raisins, they're going to skip that plant completely. So they do a really good job of quality control in the field, and ultimately the grape clusters themselves come in considerably clean. The machine harvester, on the other hand, doesn't discriminate. It drives over these rows and it grabs whatever is there. It's going to shake those vines off or shake those grapes off, and it's going to pick everything. And if there's a plant in there that has white grapes, it's going to pick it because it doesn't know. So that was a large reason why when we moved to machine harvesting, that it was mandatory that we got this optical sorter machine, which we'll talk a little bit about that at a later time. And what that machine does is it actually uses a camera to identify the grapes, and if it's not in the parameters that we want, it will get rid of it. So with the machine came some technology on the winery side. Both of them work well, they're both consistent, and we love them both. So it's just a matter of whether it's a steep hillside. Sometimes the machine can't do it, so we have to hand pick it, but if at all possible, we use the machine because it's just more reliable in general and a faster pick. Is everything turning out as I anticipated this harvest? Truthfully, so far it's been better. I was a little worried this year just because COVID reasons, and just always have a little bit of nervous, anticipation leading into harvest. But to date, it's been extremely seamless, with the exception of the low yields, which is a little bit disappointing sometimes, but that happens when you have small rain quantities coming in the wintertime. I couldn't be more excited about the fruit that's coming off this year. We have a lot of vineyards that are coming on, new varieties like Alicante Boucher that's coming in that we'll be able to make a wine out of, second year of Vermentino, and of course our traditional wines, Picpoul Blanc, Grenache, Cab. Everything's looking beautiful this year. So far so good. I know we're basically in the end of September, early October. The only potential situation now would be as if we had a weather event, and that would be probably the only real thing that could negatively affect this harvest at this point. So I'm gonna knock on some wood over here, and if that works out and we don't have any rain, I probably would coin this maybe as one of the best harvests we've ever had here at Halter Ranch. Wanted to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. And if you want to hear more about Halter Ranch and see more videos, please subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you out here at Halter Ranch shortly.